if you're the guy with a hammer, you see nails everywhere, you know? And I think this is something we have to be very careful as a crypto community and a blockchain community to make sure that we have a solution for the right problem.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Value Tokenized. Just last month in May, Xenia and I visited Fluidity Summit in New York, and one of the most impressive keynotes for us was delivered by Henri Arslanian. Henri is PwC FinTech and Crypto Leader for Asia and Chairman of FinTech Association Hong Kong. He is also an advisor for multiple regulators all over the world, very passionate about the future of financial industry, blockchain, and today we will be discussing institutional adoption in Hong Kong and all over the world. Hi Henri, thank you very much for joining us here at Value Tokenized. It was a pleasure meeting you at Fluidity Summit, and your keynote speech was one of the most memorable for us. Can you share what makes you so passionate about the future of financial industry?
First of all, great to have you. Thanks for having me on board. Big fan of your show. And obviously, I think that I'm a very, very focused. I tell people my passion and my focus in life is the future of the financial industry. And I'm just very lucky I'm able to do this as a living, either in my professional job, my academic life, or also in my civil society, different obligations. The way I started, as you guys may know, I'm a lawyer and a banker by background. And having worked in finance a couple of years ago, I was looking at how banking operated today. And frankly, I realized there was a problem. And I remember when I was in Hong Kong a couple of years ago, I used to host the first FinTech dinners in Hong Kong. And literally, I kid you not, we're maybe 5-6 people around a table. And we couldn't even fill up the whole table of 8 people. FinTech was a new term. People thought FinTech was the name of a company. And obviously now we think about this, it's obviously FinTech has evolved a lot. Even at a time, I remember crypto, even blockchain were really, really in the very early days. And it's really remarkable to see how things have evolved. Really what I'm really focused on is a part of the broader transformation of the financial industry. There's also, I think, a lot of elements that we finally have the ability to change. Not only elements like customer service, which I think is absolutely unacceptable in 2019. A customer has to still physically go to a bank branch. But also broader elements like financial inclusion. The fact that we have 20% of households, even in cities like Miami and Detroit, who don't have a bank account. And finally, we have a chance with crypto and other digital banks now to solve some of these issues. But what's really more at the bottom of my heart is education. As you may know, I've been teaching for the last couple of years the first FinTech University course in Asia. And actually, my next book on the future of finance is coming out next month. And really believe that we have a moral obligation to empower the next generation of students and talent with the changes coming up, because they will be the generation who will be impacted the most. It's not 40, 50-year-old bankers who can have many opportunities to retrain, but really a 20-year-old university student, because it's unacceptable we let people graduate out of accounting programs with no mention of blockchain. It's unacceptable to let people graduate of finance programs with no courses on crypto and broader FinTech. So very excited and very happy to share with your audience today some of our observations.
This is very cool. This is so important that you're doing this, but you're not only empowering, like students and broader audience, but also institutions. And in 2017, you convinced PwC to start accepting Bitcoin. And this is a very important step. And can you maybe share with us what inspired you to do this? And how did you actually make this happen?
Yeah, that's a question we get a lot. First of all, at PwC, our purpose as a company, the reason we get out of bed and we come to work is really to build trust in society and solve important problems. And God knows in the crypto space, there's a lot of need for that. What we have been also many people don't know, actually PwC as a firm, we're quite active in the crypto space. Not only we advise numerous crypto exchanges, numerous crypto funds, a lot of traditional banks getting into crypto, a lot of regulators on crypto policy, as well as a number of ICOs, STOs, stablecoins, and so on and so forth. And really, what's been really interesting as a firm, I call it like cherry Coke. It's a lot of 80% of the work we provide in the crypto industry are the traditional services we offer, but with a crypto twist on it. For example, we do a lot of work on crypto accounting, crypto tax, cybersecurity focus on the crypto industry. governance, controls for crypto exchanges, as well as broader other services that the industry needs. When it comes to our Bitcoin payment, it was really studying to our moral values of building trust in society and solving important problems. If clients want to pay us for our services, again, we were invoicing them in US dollars or Hong Kong dollars, but they were able to pay us those fees using Bitcoin in that case. And this was, I would say, a year and a half ago. So again, it's just to make it show that, if we're servicing a client in the crypto space, the least we can do is to accept Bitcoin as a payment, just, to show our commitment to the space to our clients. And again, very proud that the firm has done that again, more than a year and a half ago.
And in your opinion, what is more important for this industry to move forward? Institutional adoption or personal adoption step by step for each small person, for each student? How do you think?
We get that a lot, whether it's a retail adoption or the institutional adoption, and what's the importance they're going to have. Frankly, I believe both are very equally important. However, I believe that right now, in this place and time, in the history of crypto, in the 10 years that we have, institutional entry is absolutely necessary for a couple of reasons. First of all, the traditional financial services space brings a lot of the level of maturity and experience, and to a certain degree, expertise that the crypto industry not only needs, but also deserves. I mean, frankly, elements like KYC and AML, I can tell you personally, the one thing that keeps me up at night is that we hear that the crypto industry or certain crypto exchanges are laundering money or are providing services to people on sanctioned lists, and we're actually facilitating drug money, prostitution money, human trafficking money, because that's exactly what the crypto industry does not need. And if an incident like that happens, it'll be a bit like Mt. Gox in 2014. We will all be taking 2-3 years back because of incidents like that. The community is not going to move forward. I believe a lot of the industry can bring a lot of these best practices, not only from a capital perspective. I mean, if you look at even an industry like the hedge fund industry, alternative industry, is $3 trillion in assets under management. That's only one vertical of the massive crypto of the financial service industry. So there's a lot of services that could be provided. Again, regarding of how we look at it today, the crypto market's around $250 billion, give and take. It's still peanuts when you look at the broader landscape. But another example, Misha, is really when it comes to regulations. I know I'm a lawyer by background, and actually I find regulations quite sexy, quite interesting, but really believe it's very important that we have an appropriate level of regulatory framework around the crypto space. And because that for many reasons that levels up the playing field, and it's allowed us to keep the bad apples out and actually let the players who want to build long-term sustainable businesses, not only for institutional investors, but for the retail public and for the broader community and the broader world, and actually let these companies thrive. And this is why I think it's very, very important from that perspective.
And speaking about institutional adoption, in your keynote at Fluidity, you mentioned that crypto funds are one of the most active trends right now. And this is actually a very suitable way for institutions to get into crypto. They prefer this to holding crypto on their own. What do you think will happen to crypto funds in 2019, and what's the main trends that we should look into with this space?
I think when you look at the crypto fund space, as you mentioned, PwC, we just released a report a couple of months ago on the crypto hedge fund space. And just to clarify, in that report, we made sure to exclude passive funds, long-only funds, and only focus on the crypto hedge fund industry, which is an industry a lot of people talk about. I really am very, very bullish on the broader crypto fund world because, like you mentioned, a pension fund, an endowment fund, some of them may be comfortable holding Bitcoin on their own, having their own custody and their own cold storage. Frankly, the majority of them rather write a ticket, make an investment into one of the many crypto funds and actually learn from them, learn more about crypto industry, how the industry is evolving, and eventually be more comfortable, not only to allocate more capital, but potentially to bring that expertise in-house. And a good analogy for this is what you look at the traditional financial, other alternative industries. For example, in the 1990s, really we saw the rise of the hedge fund industry, the venture capital industry, the private equity industry. Many of these institutional investors deployed capital in those verticals. And now only after 10, 20, 30 years, they're slowly bringing those expertise in-house. For example, many of the pension funds now run their own hedge fund, their own private equity operations. And I really believe the same will happen over the next decade or two in the crypto space. And this is why crypto funds are very, very important as an entry point to institutional investors.
Another really hot topic right now is tokenization of assets, not only for fundraising, but general tokenization of space, but STOs as well, of course. And right now, we see a lot of interest in STOs and tokenization from investment banks. And can you see them as the main driver force for the adoption of this, vertical, so to say, of the financial industry?
So I think when we look at the broader security token space, I'm personally very bullish on the security token space. But I think we need to understand that we are at the very early days. If I had to put an analogy, I would say we are in the STO world where we were in the cryptocurrency, in the Bitcoin world, maybe in 2012 or 13. Really, it's the very early days. We're starting to see initial platforms, the standards of what people want to use. Some of the first projects come into play. Again, this is very similar to what we had in 2013 with, with Ethereum ICO or some of the other first products that were coming on the market. I'm very, very bullish on the STO market, especially when it comes to tokenizing large illiquid assets. I mean, right now I'm in Hong Kong, for example. Some of the buildings you see around me are some of the most expensive real estate assets in the world. Today, in Hong Kong, the average person is very unlikely to be able to afford an apartment, where apartments cost easily millions of dollars. I think in markets like Hong Kong, I really am very bullish on the potential of tokenization, not only to be able to create more liquidity in otherwise illiquid assets, where there's an illiquidity discount, like massive real estate holdings, but also allow people to get economic exposure slowly to bigger pieces. And that not only creates more liquidity in the market, better pricing, but what really excites me in the STO world, if I put my lawyer hat on, is really being able to streamline corporate actions. For example, voting, the way that happens right now with public companies, frankly, hasn't evolved in decades. Corporate actions, which is the payment of dividends, for example, and all these things now, obviously in the crypto world with smart contracts, maybe we can move away from quarterly dividends to monthly or weekly or even daily or even to the minute dividends if we wanted to, and all this is going to have a big impact. I actually talk about this in my next book that's coming up called The Future of Finance, where I really believe we're going to move to an era that people and everybody, we will be able to monetize our data. And the only way we're able to do this is by, being able to have assets that we can price on the spot using artificial intelligence, but also by micropayments. And this only happens in the crypto space. So very, very excited about the STO world more broadly and the changes it's going to bring forward. But I still believe we're in the early stages. But I have to say, I'm very excited by some of the projects, some of the platforms that I'm seeing in the broader security token space that are shaping up globally. It's a very exciting time. And when it comes to financial institutions, absolutely many of them are looking at this, because what's going to happen is, unlike the early days of crypto, the STO world falls within the regulated sphere, if you want. And for a lot of, talk about investment banks, funds, and other regulated market participants, this is an area where they understand, they can value the assets. It just helps them make the process more efficient, and better, more easier to access for the broader public. So that's why I think I'm very optimistic on it. And I'm very happy to see we're finally seeing some regulatory clarity. Even in Hong Kong here, the regulators recently put some clarity on the STO market, which is very, very well welcomed by the crypto and the fintech community.
And speaking about Hong Kong, you're the chairman of FinTech Association Hong Kong. And can you share some of the regulatory dynamics that are happening in this region at the moment?
Now, obviously, Hong Kong is, as I mentioned, I'm the chairman of the FinTech Association and very active in the fintech ecosystem, the crypto ecosystem here in Hong Kong. I mean, I have to say, when it comes to the fintech world, China is years ahead of any competition, especially when it comes to the B2C world. But when it comes to crypto space, I really believe that Asia is about 9 to 12 months ahead of the rest of the world. Whether it comes from innovation perspective, adoption perspective, and other developments perspective, especially from investors, Asia is ahead of everybody else. When it comes to Hong Kong, it's obviously Hong Kong has become a hub for crypto, and we're seeing now the ecosystem flourish in many areas, not only for the exchanges and the service providers, but also from the traditional financial institutions, and most importantly, the regulators. I have to say, I'm very time with regulators around the world, and I really believe that the crypto community is often very naive in thinking that regulators do not understand crypto or they don't focus on it. We did a recent piece at PwC internally where we saw that 60%, 60, of regulators around the world have issued some kind of crypto guidance clarity. And actually, a recent piece of thought leadership I was reading by Cambridge University said that less than 5% of regulators don't have somebody looking at crypto. So regulators, I have to say, overall, are spending a lot of time. Many of them are hiring in the space. They're providing the clarity. I would actually say that, and in this area, Hong Kong has been another area that has been quite at the forefront of it. As you know, since last November, the SFC here, the regulator, issued some guidance saying that any crypto fund, licensed crypto fund manager, there's about 2,500, give and take in the city, can have up to 10% of its portfolio in crypto with no additional licensing condition. And I think that's quite interesting. Obviously, if they go over, they have to ask for the additional licensing conditions and so on and so forth. But I think it's a very good step that shows you how regulators are taking a pragmatic approach to the sector. And as I say, this is the case I'm seeing in many countries around the world with regulators, and happy to share about that if you want. But really, I think they deserve a bit more credit, and that also includes Hong Kong.
But I think there is also one thing, like to reach broader adoption, what we really need is also for crypto to be accepted by banks. And we know that this is a huge issue at the moment. What do you think is needed to actually change it?
It's a good question. The crypto industry has traditionally had kind of a love-hate relationship with traditional banks. I mean, for one thing, many of them have a challenge opening a bank account. I think if you look globally, I would say that the majority of the crypto companies today are banking with a handful of banks only. And many may argue that there could be a systemic risk in the system if anything would happen to any of these big banks that all these crypto companies are banking with. But also, I think what's been really interesting the last couple of months, and probably the last year and a half, is seeing traditional financial institutions get involved increasingly in the crypto space. And that has been very exciting. Obviously, many of the banks globally are looking at either offering various services to the crypto space or focusing more on it. And that has been very interesting. There's also obviously a lot of challenges. First of all, anybody who's worked with a traditional bank knows how difficult it is. I mean, to plug in fintech inside of a bank, try to plug in crypto, it's increasingly even more difficult. So obviously there's a lot of lack of talent. There's a lot of risk associated to it, uncertainty, but also there's a lot of legacy systems. I mean, often a lot of the banks today run on legacy systems that frankly have been designed in the 1960s, 70s, 80s. So it's very difficult to plug in crypto from that perspective. But also, I really believe a big catalyst in this process is regulatory clarity. Today, globally, there's been really different approaches that regulators have taken to regulatory clarity. For example, some regulators have taken a very theoretical approach, looking at not focusing on crypto or blockchain, but more the industry as a whole. Liechtenstein is a good example, where in their new guidance, they even talk about trusted technology. They don't even talk about blockchain, but they provide some kind of comfort to the industry. Other countries like Hong Kong that I just mentioned try to put the crypto industry inside the existing regulatory framework. And other type of jurisdictions are coming out with bespoke regulatory frameworks for the crypto industry. I mean, a good example is Malta, Gibraltar, Bermuda, or even more recently, countries like France, for example. And I really believe this, the increased regulatory clarity is providing the comfort that the traditional financial institutions, including the banks, need to get more active in the crypto industry. And that's why I'm very excited to see about the next 12 months with the increasing level of crypto clarity that we have in the market today.
Yes, that is extremely exciting, and I probably have one more question. I think you're so good, at explaining things to people and like inspiring people to explore something new for them. And for somebody who has never dealt with blockchain before, who are not very familiar with the concept, how would you explain briefly the benefits of tokenization, why people should look at it, why they should not be afraid of this?
I think the problem I find often with blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies as a whole, as a community, often we try to think that it's a problem there's a solution for every problem. They say if you're the guy with a hammer, you see nails everywhere. And I think this is something we have to be very careful as a crypto community and a blockchain community to make sure that we have a solution for the right problems. I think in certain cases, for many companies where decentralization is not relevant, or even immutability is not a big issue. A lot of cloud solutions today in the market have great security and have great cost reduction, and they allow a lot of the benefits that we often propose with blockchain technology. However, I believe in certain use cases, blockchain technology has many benefits. I mean, think about the remittance industry, trade finance. I mean, these are, food safety. It's a big concern here in Hong Kong and Asia in general. You want to make sure if you're somebody living in Beijing that your cow is really coming from New Zealand, or your food and your yogurt, everything is actually coming from where it's claiming to come from. So a lot of these use cases I think are no-brainers, and we should push from that. Same in the crypto industry. When people believe that we're going to drop fiat currencies entirely and move to crypto, that's not going to happen tomorrow morning. However, I think there's a role to play that the crypto assets have in the broader ecosystem. And I think that's very interesting. For example, when it comes to financial inclusions, the remittance space. I mean, I find it unacceptable today that in 2019, if I want to transfer money from one African country to another, I'm often forced to pay fees of up to 15 to 20%. That's absolutely ridiculous. Even myself, I was doing, I'm originally, I'm a Canadian Armenian. I was transferring money back to Canada, and the fees that my bank was charging me to do one simple transfer in US dollars was frankly ridiculous. And I really look forward to the day that we'll be all using stable coins, being able to do transfers around the world, and actually being able to benefit a lot of the inherent benefits that crypto assets are promising to us. I think there's a lot of challenges there until we get there. I think we need more regulatory clarity, retail solutions, retail adoptions. I often say this, last Christmas, my mom always asked me, what do I do in life? So actually, as a Christmas gift, I bought her a Bitcoin. And now she's actually following crypto markets quite a lot. And now she told me the other day, how can I buy more Bitcoin? And frankly, it's a bit more complicated, for the day that my mom can easily know how to buy it, where to go, how to deal with it, have transparency on how the market operates. I think from a retail perspective, that's what we'll have hit the nirvana. But also, I think from a broader public perspective, when we can actually enable financial inclusion, crypto being part of it, but also I think from a broader industry perspective, there's a lot of these challenges that we can solve. And frankly, a lot of people are working on it. The big question for me in the crypto space is whether we are in 1994, where the internet is just being created, we're having emails being increasingly being used, or we're in 2001 and 2 after the big bubble has crashed, and now we have the good companies are going to come up, and we're still going to wait to see which Amazon is going to pop up, right? So I think it's a very interesting times. I personally believe this is the most exciting time in financial service history. I believe the time we're going through today, our kids and our grandchildren will read about it in history books or whatever, they'll be reading it at a time, and really realizing how at a pivotal time we were in the history of finance, and most importantly, in the future of money. And that's what I'm very excited about it. That's what I talk about in my next book as well, when I talk about the future of finance, how we have elements like fintech, crypto, and AI. And while each one of them independently have a big impact, is when you add these together that you have actually completely, incremental and really exponential impact. And that's super exciting. And we're all very privileged to live through this right now.
All right, I think that was it for today. Thank you so much for sharing. This was so interesting.
Maybe you can also share where the audience can get your book, when it will be available.
We want to order our copies.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, happy to. As you guys know, I share a weekly video on LinkedIn called the Crypto Capsule, where I give an update on what's happening in crypto markets globally. LinkedIn is often my main medium. My next book coming out called The Future of Finance, basically how the impact of fintech, crypto, and AI on the financial service industry is just now being published by Palgrave Macmillan, and now it's actually available for pre-order on Amazon. So Amazon, like in many things, tends to be a good place to pre-order them. The book is coming out at e-version in mid-July, and the hard copies will be available, I think, 2 or 3 weeks later, the first week of August. So I'm very excited about the book, and I look forward to sharing with your audience and the broader community globally.
Yeah, we're also very excited about this. Yeah, thank you so much again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
This was Value Tokenized. Thank you for watching.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for weekly videos, to our Twitter for shorter versions, and don't forget to like.